Is embracing imperfection just a form of laziness? Well, the actual correct answer, I think, is no, or at least not necessarily. Embracing imperfection isn't inherently laziness, or in a literal sense, it's not.
It's not.
Embracing imperfection is embracing imperfection, and laziness is laziness. But I definitely don't want to stay on this surface semantic level of that question. I think there is actually quite a bit to explore, and I want to touch on the idea of imperfection, which I spoke about with Sane on this channel a few weeks ago. And I want to probably also touch on the analysis of the conversation between Dr. K and Alex O'Connor. And I have to say, by the way, that I am so grateful for all the engagement, all the comments on that video. Just this idea that some strangers from different parts of the world want to engage with me with some ideas, with my thoughts about certain topic, which is quite important for me or quite interesting for me, is refreshing. And I have to say, I am really grateful for that. So just, I'm humbly welcoming you here on my channel. And, I hope you will find some value here, and I hope we will engage in a conversation. So let's get to the question and exploring the question. What's inside? Because I want to say that, I like engaging in this semantics, like, oh, is this, like, for example, is this, well, this is, if you forget that this is a banknote, this is a rectangle, this is a rectangle, but it's also a square, every square is a rectangle. But is this a rectangle? Yes, it is, but it's not a square anymore, And so, in a way, I think it also is the matter here in terms of embracing imperfection and laziness, that it could be this, in certain contexts, something that we could describe as embracing imperfection, we could also describe it as a laziness. First of all, what is perfection? Then, what is embracing imperfection? Then, what is laziness? And then, who decides what's what, Because, of course, we operate with certain definitions, with certain ideas. But then at the end of the day, when there is a disagreement between me and you, for example, when you claim that something is a laziness, and I say, no, it's not laziness, it's just a beautiful way of embracing imperfection. Who's right? Who's wrong? And who can be a judge, And the fifth question I want to ask during this analysis is, why does that matter? Why is it important to ask those sort of questions? Because for me, it's not like, I don't know, it's not just mental gymnastics that it's, it's refreshing my mind. And, it's actually very pragmatic for me. And it's pretty much something that I value the most, this preparation, this tuning my mind in the right way so that I can go about my day and navigate life in the best way. And so that is the answer to the fifth question. But let's start from the first one. What is perfection? Well, perfection is a mental construct, but I would say it's a subjective mental construct because, most of us have some sort of idea of what would be the perfect scenario in a certain context, But then again, we could discuss, like, for example, even now, let's imagine what would be the perfect moment right now, We could describe it in whatever way we want. But at the same time, we could say, for example, wouldn't it feel better if I saved some, child yesterday from dying from whatever disease or hunger, or I saved someone's life on the street, because there was a car crash just about to happen, and I saved somebody, and now I am, feeling good about it, that would probably be more perfect. And and once we see that, we can easily assume that there would always be something that could be improved. Even the idea like what is going to happen next, or perhaps that we are not thinking about what is going to happen next. We are more grounded in the present moment. And so whatever way we want to use to describe the perfect moment or perfect scenario or perfect whatever, it will always be discussable, debatable, and what matters is that we all subjectively have a right to think whatever we have. It's not even the right thing, because that would mean that someone has to grant me this right. It's basically inevitable human condition that we have certain preferences between better and worse. And and it's for me personally, it's important to note that we can be wrong about I want certain thing more than the other thing, but fast forward 1 year later or whatever into the future, and the less preferred scenario would actually be much better for me. So yeah, that's just something that perfection. And this is why, based on that short analysis, this is why I don't even think about perfection. I know it's a unattainable scenario. It's a mental construct, and it doesn't provide much value to me. And this analysis is important for me to basically reject the idea and not think about it. And this is where I think certain overlap comes with the analysis of Dr. K and Alex O'Connor, which I mentioned before. That I think it's a quite big analogy with believing in God, or basically understanding how the world works. Basically, I am more than happy. It's the most logical, the most pragmatic way for me to just stop at the answer, I don't know. What is perfection? I don't know. I don't comprehend that idea, basically. And how was the world created? I don't know. And how could I know? And I'm more than happy with that answer. So rejecting that idea, and I think it's still worth in discussions like this, basically question every belief, and I think it's helping me to find more and more clarity in the big concepts, big concepts like how we were created and what is our purpose in this life, but also in small things, like what should I eat for my breakfast? Because maybe, and that is actually the correct answer, I don't eat breakfasts. So what should I eat for my breakfast, and what is my meaning of life? Basically by questioning certain premises inside the questions helped me to reject the idea in the first place. And so I don't believe in the grand meaning of life, and I don't believe in, the pressure to eat breakfast. I start eating around 1-2 p.m. and I'm fine with that. And I'm also fine with that my life doesn't have a one particular meaning. So that's about what perfection is. Then question number 2, what is embracing imperfection? And I want to find some illustration of what embracing imperfection would mean. And again, it's quite similar to my attitude towards perfection, that there's nobody to judge, that, like, for example, let's look at this video, could it be better? Could it be more perfect? Who's to say, Because for somebody who is taking this journey with me, it's just perfect. And for somebody, like some videographer or whoever is, a professionalist in that area, would say that probably the video should be more like this, or maybe I should be closer to the microphone, maybe I should dress better, or I should use some script, for example, or I should do something else, and that would be more perfect, And who's right, who's wrong? Everybody is right in their own context, And so for me, the idea behind these videos, because that was my main example, is me making these unscripted videos. Am I just lazy? Is it just about not caring about the viewer? No, it's not that, And I had to take some time, because very often we believe in our own bullshit, Like there is some sort of subtle rationalization which we tend to believe. And I thought about it, What would happen if this happened, Like I was processing all these thoughts, And for me, like I said, that actually it's not a mental gymnastics for me. These sort of ideas and taking this journey from asking myself a question, unpacking the question, and exploring, certain premises, certain, smaller questions. Like, for example, if we want to find the answer, like, is embracing imperfection and laziness, we definitely have to define laziness, imperfection, and then perfection, and, ask ourselves deeper questions like, why are we involved in engaging in this sort of topic? Why I want to make a video about it? Why are you listening to this? It's a fascinating line of questioning myself and learning about myself, And then basically when I go out from here to the world to care about my relationships, to care about myself, my mind, like I said, it's tuned in the right way. Like I know my values, I know where I am, and I know what I don't know also. And, that helps me navigate life in it with more clarity. So for me, the videos are not just about the final answer and presenting the final answers, because the final answers are quite obvious, are quite simple, and are very cheaply available on the internet, I will not give you any answers that you didn't know about, It will always be about the same, about accepting reality as it is, taking responsibility, and learning from this cycle, There's I can promise you right now that there will be nothing less and nothing more in terms of my intentions on this channel. It will always be the same. Asking certain questions, coming from different angles, different contexts, but the essence is always the same. Accept and take responsibility. And it's simple, but it's not easy. And this is why the reminders like this help me navigate using this attitude of acceptance and responsibility. And so for me, it's not just about the final answers and not even about the obvious answers like, no, it's not the same. It's two different concepts. No, it's about taking the journey with me from asking a question or basically confronting a certain problem and taking the journey of solving the problem, exploring the ideas, It's about the process and not the final stop, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, embracing imperfection, for me, it's basically manifestation or the act of accepting reality as it is and just understanding that this is what is the case as of now, as of right now. And and there will never be a perfect moment, but that doesn't mean that doesn't even imply that there are no better moments and worse moments for doing certain things, such as publishing video. For example, If like I have a certain idea about the concept, but closing my speech right now and cutting the video, or let's say I have some technical issue and stopping it right now, doesn't mean that I want to publish this video. Maybe I should start again, or maybe not. Who is to decide? Nobody. And so for me, it's just about accepting reality as it is in different contexts. And so in that case, I just want to explore the 5 questions, more or less, which I mentioned, and then, share my journey with you, and then stay curiously open. What do you think about it? Like, what is your experience about it? Like, do you agree? Do you not agree? And so on. And, I understand, again, like, managing my expectations is a big factor. That is a small channel, so on many topics, nobody will engage. But I am also a viewer, I am also a listener, and it's a very different perspective right now when I speak about the topic and when I listen to myself, a few hours later or a few days later, So all these are important parts of this process, of this journey, So embracing imperfection is just that, the understanding that the world will never be perfect, but, taking responsibility is potentially available in each and every moment, And so it doesn't mean that I have to share everything, share every thought with the world around me. No, it's actually more about learning this mental capacity to manage my thoughts, manage my emotions, and, share depending on my understanding of the room. Publish on the YouTube the same way as I would want to speak with somebody, with my dad, with my wife, with whoever, Is this the right moment to share or not, But it doesn't change that I'm accepting everything that is inside of me, And that is embracing imperfection. I'm not hiding it, Hiding something or like lying about something doesn't mean that it's not the same as sharing everything to everybody, I hope that makes sense, So embracing imperfection. And what is laziness? Laziness is also a way of describing certain behavior, say certain attitude, and it's a sort of judgment, Usually it means that I am avoiding some sort of effort, which probably is somewhere inside of me. There is some sort of pressure that I should do something, And very often we believe in that judgment that I should do something. And if I don't do this, there's something wrong about me. I am lazy. And this sort of judgments, usually it's very toxic inside, It's self-destructive, Yeah. And that is an example of embracing imperfections. I did a certain mistake, certain error, but that's me, and perhaps it would be better if I cut the video and correct myself, and do this in a more perfect way. But based on my assumptions, but based on my attitude, no, I did make a mistake, and I want to take responsibility for that, and it presented in that way to you, perhaps, So laziness is a sort of judgment, and usually when we explore laziness, it's more complicated than it seems at the beginning. And in a way, I would say, even though it's technically not correct, I would say that what you call laziness is not laziness. Basically, it's usually some sort of misalignment between your values, between your conditioning, between your environment. And usually it's a great potential to look closer and analyze the situation with more critical thinking. Because for me, I don't know, very often when for example, you feel the pressure that you should do something, such as, go to the gym, talk to somebody close to you, spend time with somebody, and you feel like, I don't want to do that. And you assume that it means that you're lazy. Usually, from my perspective, there is a great potential to look at yourself more closely and learn about yourself, because if you feel like lazy, usually it means you shouldn't do something, or maybe you should do some sort of change, change your expectations, change your basically strategy, change your plan. I think from my perspective, like from my experience, I was battling with myself many times. Oh, it's like I am bad and I should be good. Like in gambling, in dieting, in many different projects, scenarios, relationships. That I shouldn't be like this. I should be different. But this is like even the words I said. I shouldn't do something. I shouldn't be like that. That is actually potential to embrace imperfection, or embrace and accept reality as it is. That what does it mean? I shouldn't be something, or I shouldn't do something. No, it's about accepting that as of now, this is what I am. This is what I desire. This is what I desire. This is what I think. This is what I want. This is what I can. And, and what do I do about it, And that is the ultimate way to accept and take responsibility in the present moment, in any particular situation. And this is why I make these videos, because, after talking about it, or sometimes listening to some similar topics like this, it's about internal stability, internal emotional intelligence, internal values, and like be stronger. That's it. And so like laziness for me is like almost like perfection. That I reject the idea of being lazy. Usually when you're lazy, it means that your attitude, your approach, rather than actions, should be confronted. Like, why do you believe certain things? It's about questioning these beliefs from my perspective. And so I actually mentioned the fourth question and the answer about who decides what's what. Like I said, it's always subjective. What is perfection? Everybody can get the idea, and their idea is right in their context, in their subjective context. And for me personally, I don't even think about perfections, or most concepts I reject. I don't think about it. I don't talk about it. If somebody comes to me with a set of concepts, I always want to get deeper into the actual situation and about the actual dilemma. Like, what are you actually thinking about? What is your dilemma? What is the choice you have to make? And maybe you're afraid of certain decision, for example, confront somebody, or break up with somebody, or start going to the gym, or stop doing something. It's usually about that. And we could talk about the concepts like fear, like trauma, like addictions, like all the concepts, like perfectionism. We could talk about it, and I think it's worth talking about it. But I think it's more honest, more valuable, and more, I would say, there is a lot more substance when we talk about those concepts in the context of doing something. So of like taking action and learning from that action. What is the dilemma? Okay, what is your choice? Take responsibility, accept the consequences, and in the process, like focusing on your emotions, on your process, on your journey. Let's talk about those stuff, Let's talk about this stuff like perfectionism, like, addictions, like, relationship, breakups, whatever, burnout, or whatever. But let's use that in the actual context. That's my approach, And so, again, the fifth question I wanted to ask was, why does that matter? Basically, like I said, because it helps me personally navigate my life in a more in a in a clearer way, full. I feel clarity. Basically, I do things like basic things, like working on certain things, like communicating with people, um, working out. Anything I do, there is a clarity deeper inside, that I know why I do certain things. Whenever something is, when I confront certain misalignment, there's something wrong. Like, I don't like what I'm doing right now. Like, what is happening? I don't jump into conclusions that I am lazy, or I shouldn't do like this, or I shouldn't be like that. Even though I have experience of doing that, and I feel so much empathy to the old me, because that was creating my suffering, and I stopped that, and it's so liberating, and it's great. It feels great, and I wish all people to feel much lighter, as like that is my experience. And and a question like this, it's a simple question: is embracing imperfection just a form of laziness? And the simple answer is no, not necessarily. Perhaps you could call something like this, but it's not about the question itself. It's not about the answer. It's about the journey and experiencing the journey as fully as possible. And this is what I wanted to accomplish here. And again, like managing my expectations. And an example of how well this video will be received is, this is the same analogy with everything we do in life. You do certain things, you try really hard, but what do you expect after completing certain task? Do you expect that there will be a parade for you? Because there is a correlation between how much effort you put and what your expectations are likely to be. And I think it's managing expectations is a crucial part of navigating life and accepting, your disappointments. Basically, once you understand your expectations, your disappointments are much easier to accept. And when it is much easier to accept reality, and this is what I learn and this is what I practice, then it is easier to take responsibility. And taking responsibility is the most important thing in life, because at the end of the day, the main dilemma is you are either a victim or you take responsibility. There's no third way. That's my take on that. I'll be very grateful to hear what you think about it. Thank you very much if you stayed till the end. I wish you all the best. Have a great day. Bye-bye.